Tonight is a very special night. The Reynolds Award winner is with us tonight. It's very special for me because I get to introduce the person who introduces the Reynolds Award winner. And the reason that's very special to me is because it's our young alum rep on the board who happens to share my last name. Ladies and gentlemen, my daughter, Molly Cronin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight to present the Reynolds Award. The William D. Reynolds Award is given to a Notre Dame graduate doing exceptional work with youth for the betterment of the quality of life. Bradley Grabs cannot be better suited to receive this award tonight. Brad graduated from Notre Dame in 1992 and originally had plans to pursue a career in business. Instead, after graduation, he completed a year of service, which opened his eyes to a passion for working with underprivileged children. Brad began working at a Jesuit high school in Kansas City and chose to live in an impoverished area there. As he was taking a walk in a park near his home one Sunday afternoon, Brad was beaten and mugged by two teenagers. After the anger had subsided and after much prayer, he began to think that instead of focusing his efforts on some of the most privileged youth, maybe he should begin focusing on the kids in his neighborhood, kids who seemed to need the most help and guidance. With that, Brad left his teaching job and started an after-school and summer program for urban youth. He had a vision of helping students reach their full potential and realize their true value. The Learning Club began in 2002 with 20 students and a few volunteers from a local church. Today, the Learning Club serves over 100 students a week with the help of over 70 volunteer tutors. The focus remains on the most disadvantaged children in the urban core, where many students give up hope early on. 3 of 4 locations for the Learning Club are located in public housing projects, so that transportation or lack of parental involvement isn't a reason that kids cannot attend. Brad has been known to knock on doors of these projects to recruit new kids or to check on absent ones. Brad, his wife, and their children live across the street from one of the Learning Club sites and go the extra mile in helping their students, whether that's helping a child whose mother is working the night shift or caring for a child whose single father is in the hospital. Tonight, we honor Brad for 15 years of not only educating children, but also giving them hope in their futures. Please join me in welcoming our Notre Dame Alumni Association William D. Reynolds Award winner, Bradley Grabs.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this incredible honor. I'm really very grateful. When Dolly called me a few months ago and told me I'd been selected for this award, I was really amazed. I was especially excited to learn that I'd be coming back to campus to receive the award. But I'll have to admit that when Dolly told me that this event was going to be in January, my mind flashed back to January of my sophomore year, walking in a blizzard from campus to my beloved but very distant dorm of Carroll Hall. Fellow Vermin. It was the only time in my life when my eyelids literally froze shut. But fortunately today is a beautiful day at Notre Dame, so very happy to be here. Very happy to be here with my wife Dawn and our baby daughter Frances. Dawn has been such an important part of the Learning Club's development over the years, and my own development as a husband, a father, and a Christian. I'm very grateful to her. Also grateful for Larry and Kathy Ryan, who joined us this evening. Larry and Kathy have been very involved in Learning Club from the early days as supporters and volunteer tutors, and they've been wonderful friends. So they traveled with us and helped me take care of Francis, so we're very grateful for them to be here as well. When I was a student at Notre Dame, I would never have guessed that my life would look as it does today. During my 4 years here, I really had my mind on a business career or maybe law school. But I'll have to admit that there was always some voice in the back of my mind that urged me and that drew me. One early whispering came when I was graduating from Chaparral High School in Harper, Kansas. Now, Harper is a farming town of 1,600 people in south central Kansas. And though I loved growing up there, by the time I was 18, I was so ready to break away and make my splash on the world, and being accepted to Notre Dame was a perfect opportunity to do just that. Ambition and success were large on my mind at that time, but I remember pausing a bit by a graduation card that I received from a friend. Now, I was a typical 18-year-old, and I really treasured graduation cards. Not because of what they said or who they were from, but because I thought there was a decent chance that there'd be some money or a gift card inside. But somehow this one simple card caught my attention. It had a quote from Albert Einstein. He said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather a man of value." Interesting. It was that voice. My 4 years at Notre Dame were really incredible. I loved studying accounting, and I loved the great friends that I made from all over the U.S., many of whom I'm still in contact with today. I was so excited when, after the summer after my junior year, I landed an internship with IBM. It was a great opportunity, great pay, and an opportunity for a really great career with Big Blue. But there was only one problem. I didn't find the work fulfilling. I remember one day when my boss came by my desk and handed me my paycheck, and he said, "Here you go, Brad. This is what makes it all worthwhile." And at that moment, I remembered something that my dad told me as a teenager. If you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. It was that darn voice again. I thought that taking a year off after graduation would help to clear my mind and give me time to consider different options for my career. So I went by the Center for Social Concerns, and the next thing I knew, I was signed up for the Vincentian Service Corps to go to Arkansas and do a year of service. Now that was an eye-opening experience for this Kansas farm boy. I thought coming to Notre Dame was a big adjustment. But in Stamps, Arkansas, I experienced poverty and racism in an unimaginable way. I had the privilege of living on the black side of town, separated by white folks from railroad tracks. I lived in the ramshackle home of an 87-year-old African-American woman named Mrs. Gallagher, whom I came to know and love as a living saint. That year proved to be one of the most enjoyable and valuable years of my entire life. I heard the voice a lot that year. Sometimes it was through the mouth of Mrs. Gallagher as she sternly but lovingly directed youth to stay on a good path. Sometimes I heard the voice just from the lives of the many faith-filled, wonderful people that I met who just happened to live in extreme poverty. I found that I truly wanted to continue to respond to that voice because I learned that following it gave me joy, gave me life. Was the call to become a priest? I entered the Society of Jesus. Through experiences in the Jesuit novitiate, my faith steadily and sometimes painfully moved from my head to my heart. An incredibly formative experience, but ultimately not my calling. I lived in community at the Shalom Catholic Worker House, a homeless shelter for men, where I was profoundly impacted by the men we served and the many volunteers who came to serve them. Fast forward to a Sunday afternoon in 2000, as Molly described, when I was taking a walk in a park near my home in Kansas City, Kansas. I saw two young men up ahead of me, and then I kind of saw them circle back behind. And I had a bad feeling in my stomach. Long story short, they caught up with me and beat me and mugged me. A difficult experience. I was angry and fearful for some time. But eventually I offered a prayer for those two boys. And soon I heard that voice again. You see, at the time I was teaching at Rockhurst High School, a Jesuit preparatory school in the suburbs. I was teaching social justice, which I really loved. But that voice asked me, why are you teaching social justice and not doing it? You're devoting your life to teenage boys at Rockhurst, but what about the kids in the urban core? It was that voice again. I left Rockhurst the following year and started the Learning Club in the same neighborhood where I was mugged. For several years, I was very content to work with the 25 marginalized children in that impoverished area. But one day I was invited to do a police ride-along to learn more about the issues in our neighborhood. At one point, the officer I was with got a call about a domestic disturbance at Juniper Gardens. Now I'd heard about Juniper Gardens, but I'd never been there. It was notorious for crime and disorder. It's the oldest and largest public housing project in Kansas. Well, we took off red light and siren, high speed, toward Juniper Gardens. But we pulled over 3 blocks before we got there. And I looked over at the officer, and he said, "We never go here alone. We've got to wait for backup." We waited several minutes for 2 more patrol cars to come before they would even enter the compound. Fortunately, the incident that was called in was not a huge deal. Domestic disturbance that started in a home spilled out into the yard. But as I sat in the police car watching this incident, what caught my eye were kids. Dozens and dozens of kids everywhere. Some of them were kind of watching this whole thing unfold, some of them just playing. And I heard that voice again. Why are so many children growing up in a place where the police are afraid to go? That voice really weighed on my heart and on my mind. A few weeks later, I walked into the office of the local housing authority. I asked if there were any programs for children at Juniper Gardens. There hasn't been anything in years, I was told. Would you like to start something? We have a community center right in the middle of the complex that you could meet in. Yes, I said. And with that, the Learning Club at Juniper Gardens was born. It was a tough go at first. A volunteer, a coworker, and I went door to door knocking on the houses, inviting kids to come. We heard shouting and profanity coming from inside the homes. We encountered people high on drugs and alcohol. We had a couple of doors slammed in our faces. But when our opening day came, 8 students showed up. Not bad. And when word got out that we served really good snacks and that students could earn points for their hard work, and they could use those points to buy school supplies and toys, we soon had 30 students in our program at Juniper Gardens. At the Learning Club, we really work hard to help our students reach their awesome potential in academics, but just as importantly, we do our very best to create a positive and respectful environment with caring adult tutors so that at least for a few hours every week, our children can be their very best selves. And they are. When given the right environment, our children are wonderful, beautiful people, just as God created them to be. Now, I really can't take much of the credit for what the Learning Club has become in the lives of our students. We work now with over 120 students each week and have over 100 tutors come from throughout the metro area to work with our students each week. These volunteers are the folks who are supporting and forming these beautiful children. When I started Learning Club, I didn't have much to lose. I was single, free to do what I wanted to do. It really was not a big sacrifice or commitment. But I'm so amazed by the folks who come faithfully to work with our students. They come into some of the most notoriously crime-ridden, impoverished areas in Kansas City, and they make a real sacrifice to do so. Most of them have lots of valid reasons to excuse themselves from working with our students. The projects are not a safe place to go. They're awfully busy at work. They have kids of their own at home. They give money to support the Learning Club. They do other volunteering at church. All valid reasons to excuse themselves from working with our students. But they don't excuse themselves. They still come. I suspect that they hear the voice too. I've been truly blessed to have the freedom and the support for my parents, my wife, many good friends, to listen to the voice of the Spirit and respond. But it's an ongoing process, right? Each of us has to take the time to listen and have the courage to respond to the Spirit. Even when the voice of the Spirit invites us to do something unusual or uncomfortable or unpopular or illogical. Now, obviously, that's usually not the path to becoming a person of success. But I think that it is often the path to becoming a person of value. To what is the voice of the Spirit calling you? Do you hear it? Thank you, and God bless you.